And we're talking about parenting before we went to the break, and parenting is so important. You made the point that behind every delinquent child there is a delinquent parent. Some people might not buy wholeheartedly into that theory. I am one who does not. For the simple reason that you have some children, and you see them all around. They have all the privileges, they have what we might consider very good parents, but yet they decide to do their own thing. Now, I'm not saying that this is more the norm than the exception, but with every rule there is an exception. I mean, how would you, where would you place those children or those individuals, and how do you begin to resolve the issues that they have? Because obviously they would have issues.
Okay, well, first of all, there is a proverb in the scriptures that says the parents have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. You see, a child does not just turn out to become a criminal or delinquent. It takes training to become a doctor. It takes training to become a lawyer, a media person like you. It takes training. It takes training and conditioning to become a criminal or to be delinquent. I don't care what parents tell me. If you trace it carefully, they may have provided the physical needs, but they may have inadvertently did not take care of the emotional and the psychological needs. There may be certain parents who are physically present, but they are emotionally absent. They may give the child the latest gadget, the latest technology and everything going. Send the child to university, but the child might still have a vacuum. Let me put it to you, and some females don't like that, but I'm going to say it tonight. A woman can tell a young man the way, but only a man can show a young man the way. And a lot of females I'm referring to, do the research. Most of the young men who end up at the boys training center, like him tell you, either the grandmother was taking care of them, or their sister was taking care of them, or their mother was taking care of them, or an aunt was, only females that were in their life. And when the time came for them to stand up on the inside, to get direction and correction, the man was absent in their life. And there are a lot of hurting women tonight. They tried very hard with a young man, trying to help him in the best way that they could. But there comes a time in the whole transition from childhood to teenagehood. Children, I'm making that point, teenagers, they are like cement. They are soft today and they're hard tomorrow. And there are a lot of parents who will want you to believe. I challenge them, who want you to believe that they did everything that they could. And the everything would mean, well, I send them to school, I give them everything. But they didn't really work hard enough to parent the child together so that the emotional and the psychological and the social needs were met.
Do you agree?
I challenge that.
Well, I mean, you know, there are a lot of situations where you find there are single parents who are doing pretty well with their children. There are situations where a father alone is raising his kids, and some of them turn out to be okay. But, you know, there is a law where, you know, both parents should be there. I mean, that's a spiritual law. I call that. God must, I mean, if you're going to, you know, make up your mind to have kids, I mean, you know, you'll have to come together, and both of you are supposed to be there. You know, the bad thing is when one leaves. If the father leaves, then, you know, you find there is a support that the child may need that the mother may not understand. But there are cases where you know, single parents do pretty well with the kids.
No, I'm not saying I have to present the general principle. I understand the exception.
Definitely. I mean, you know, there are different scenarios, because you'll find that in a household, setting, you might have 3, 4, 5 children, and there might be one of the children who goes astray, one who takes a different path from everyone else. How do you explain that when they have had the same background, they have had the same parental guidance? You would assume they would have had the same opportunities, same privileges, they would have been have access to the same resources, but yet their choices, their direction is different to that of their siblings.
Let me tell you, I don't know if you have done that, look at the structures of different families, but there are certain persons, children in the family. For example, there's what is called the family hero, and there's what is called the lost child and the mascot. Let me explain that. The family hero is that child that the parents always boast about and how well he or she does in school, and how that child represents the family in a very positive way. If you look into any family, you'll get the family hero, the person that makes the family appear proud and successful. Now, there might be a child who locks himself in the room, and that child is seeking for attention or direction, but that child is almost unnoticed in the family. That child, whilst he is left to himself or herself, that child starts to develop a thought pattern and certain attitudes and the parents might not identify that. Eventually, they start exhibiting certain domestic problems, and certain parents, they sweep it under the carpet, believing that it will disappear with time. But children are not like some kind of mannequin you see in the showcase that you could just assume that they're all right. Children have to be engaged. You have to make sure that you listen to what your child is saying and what your child is not saying. Parents must have free ears, not just the two that you're seeing right now, what the child is not saying. And I'm telling you, parenting is not just a task, it is science. It is a very serious matter. And children do not just turn out to be good or bad. There are certain dynamics that parents need to put their ear to the ground to listen to. So I'm one of those advocates, and if you listen to the prison system and listen to how boys end up at the boys' training, I'm telling you, I have been working at the boys' training center for 20-something years. I've never seen a husband and a wife appear at the boys' training center. I have seen aunties, I have seen nannies, I have seen all the ladies in their life. And where are the fathers? The fathers are some other place. And I'm saying to you that accidental, after more than 20 years of research, I have seen with my eyes. The closest I saw was my brother when, and I've been honest with you, when my mother and my father were sleeping in different rooms. And the only thing that separated me from my brother is a 1/8 sheet of plywood where I had to be involved. And he started giving problems at school. And when I started telling my mother, Mom, so-and-so is not doing what he's supposed to do. Oh, when your father comes, he will deal with that. The child start having his own way, start liming in Conway, start doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm telling you, Clinton, until he stabs somebody, my mother thought she had everything under control. That's my child. That's my son. Let me correct myself. And they have some females out there. They believe they can do a great job. Some of them don't believe that they can. They need a man in their life. So I am saying to you, Clinton, there is what is called the family hero. There is what is called the lost child in the family. And there's also certain children that do not communicate. But the fact that they are not speaking, they have serious issues. So our society have gone astray, and people say, well, okay, we could have single parents who could just do a fantastic job. There may be one or two people who successfully, maybe the bigger brother was in the picture, maybe the uncle was in the picture. You know what I'm saying? That the mill was there. But in reality, I have some strong.
How do you get them back on track now?
Oh, good question.
You know, how do you get them back on track? Because after you have had all these experiences, you have gone down a path that is destructive to you emotionally, psychologically, sometimes physically and socially. To get back takes some effort. And this is where you come in. This is where your advocacy comes in. This is what you are doing as well, Kim, you know, in the ways that you are trying to do it. So what do you do to reach out to those people and show them a better way?
Before Kim come on, there's what is the key to intimacy is understanding. How people will program historically is very important. There is a guy they call Larry Crabb. He speaks about the recollection technique. Let me give you an example. If Kim is to take marijuana, and he has his stepfather and his father taking marijuana in the house, before you start to tell Kim about marijuana is wrong and it have all the kind of stuff, you need to engage in the recollection technique. Ask him, who was the first person in your life that you can recollect, you can remember, that stopped taking marijuana? If the child tells you his father was taking marijuana, you cannot tell the guy, well, your father is taking marijuana, but don't do what your father is doing, do what I say. Children, the truth with children are caught, it is not taught. Children catch things. You get what I'm saying? So you have to make sure that you can trace the root of the problem as to where that child learned that behavior. And you have to make sure you make sense in your response. You don't tell the child, well, your father used to do that. No, you have to say your father was wrong. He will always be wrong. But your health is at stake. You get what I'm saying? And you get a high. And even if it's not going to be just marijuana smoking, any antisocial behavior, the key to bring people to a path the way they can confide in you is understanding. So everybody have a different story, Clinton. For example, let me give you another experience. If you're dealing with what is called a pro-social, an antisocial, an outlaw, or a pseudo-social, I'll explain those roles in terms of personality. You do not just assume things. Let me give you an example. If you talk about somebody that is a pro-social, somebody who goes into ball, you go into ball, the person have committed a crime for the very first time, they are an offender. They admit that they are wrong, but they want to stay in touch with society. They still believe in the structures in society. They don't speak about society's Babylon and CIA and there's nothing good about society. So that person, being a first offender, still have the kind of rehabilitation material that you can direct quickly. Now, they have persons who are antisocial, where they believe the society is against them and everything that's in the society is working against them. They cannot see anything good in the society. Now, you cannot just dismiss that because they have been hurt, rejected, neglected. There is an issue that caused them to reach to that conclusion. You cannot sweep over it. You have to listen attentively and make sure that you make the person understand that society is not rejecting you because they don't like you. It's because of what you are doing. And maybe there are certain policies, I don't know, certain issues. So you have to listen with the foot air what the person is not saying. There is also what is called the outlaw. The person's frame of reference shifts from one point to the other. You go to Bodley, he will give you a story as a staff, and he will give a volunteer a different story. As a counselor that directly engage him, a different story. They have certain persons, they do not have respect for laws. They make their laws. Now that's a result of rebellion. And there's a difference between stubbornness and rebellion. Stubbornness is that you are not being convinced yet that you should change your mind about a certain issue. But rebellion is that you accept it as a truth, but you still go contrary towards it. And people mistake rebellion for stubbornness. So I am saying to you, you have other persons who are pseudo-social, they are manipulative. How do you diffuse and disarm manipulation? How can you do that? Now, I'm saying to you there's two ways. There's what is called codependence, and there's what is called the truth. The first step for me to rehabilitation is honesty. If I think, give me one story, you give the officer another story, you give your family another story, brother, stay far from me until you start learning to speak the truth. So there is a science involved, and it's not no accident. Success is no accident. I don't go into Bodley, just sit down there and smile and open a Bible. I have a lot of things that in the background that tells me whether or not that person is pro-social, anti-social, pseudo-social, or an outlaw. You understand? And this is where the education process begins.
Now,
So,
I know, Kim. I know, Kim. You may not have that level of background that Keith has, in understanding these concepts. But of course, you do what you can to reach out to young people as well. Being a mentor, you also work at the Boys Training Center in some capacity. So tell me about that, and tell me how you have used your challenges in a positive way to affect others.
Well, if I wanted to help somebody and I know that person in a situation, I would speak to their parents. Sometimes the parents more need help than the children. Sometimes you may never know what is happening in the house. Sometimes you may focus on the children, but you never know where they're from, the community, what is going on there, if the parents work, the educational level. There's a lot of things that we have to get into, but we have to get into the household, because that's where the problem started in the first place. Right. You focus on the child and you try to fix the child. The child may display, different, good qualities, but that's not the final judgment. That child may go back to the community where it's pretty messed up and go back to phase one, So I believe in helping people. I have spoken to parents in the past about their kids and measures that they should take to help their children, and I think that works.
Going back, you made a point right there a while ago. You leave an institution like the Boys Training Center and you're going back into the same environment from which you have come, and you're being faced with the same people, the same peer pressure probably. You're back into your comfort zone where you had developed the antisocial behavior somewhat. You have developed attitudes that are not conducive to success. How do you reincorporate yourself into that kind of environment and tap into what you have learned from an institution like the Boys Training Center, which has tried to rehabilitate?
Well, I don't want to be too defensive, but I've never been antisocial. I don't see society as some scary place that I should run from, and that is what that has assisted me in my progress. That is what helps people to see life differently. Because if I were to think that society is a pretty messed up place, I would never change, and people need to change their mindsets. I could say when I watch television and I look around in our society, I think that people are programmed to move in one direction, and I think we should start moving in other directions to kind of reap the kind of progress that we're looking for. And we have to try to bring that kind of mindsets in institutions to change it for the better. And the mindsets that I'm talking about is caring for people more, and sharing, and doing all that we can. Go to the parents' houses, find out what is going on there. More people should come out of the Boys Training Center.
You're watching Newsmaker Live, and we want to take your calls in a moment so that you can add your voice to the conversation and also ask Kim and Keith some questions that might be burning for you. So we'll put up the number so that you can become involved in the conversation. Now, it seems that we are going down a path in our society a few years ago you had, you know, a number of assassinations, killings were rampant. Blood was flowing along the streets. You know, the St. Lucian soil was crying because of the murders. I mean, in your time, and these were not things that you were exposed to. I'm sure that things have got worse since you were at the Boys Training Center. Can you identify what a possible reason is that things have got so bad? And just before you answer that, let's take this call. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your question.
I would like to say, I like this program tonight, and I would like this message to reach out to all young men and children of this nation, so that we could have a better tomorrow, a better future, regardless of all what we face in today. Good night, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that comment. Going back to the question, what do you think led to what we are experiencing right now?
Well, what I can say is that society, I think St. Lucia on a whole is, you know, there are people suffering, and there are people that are unemployed, but I believe that we're going forward. I believe people are using their discretion when it comes to spending money. I think people are more taking life seriously. I think when you look at the news today, you know, parents lock their doors at 6, and I think that's great. I think that's
but some still are not locking the doors. But let's take this call. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your question.
I love the program. I love what he's speaking about. But I think he should be practicing what he's preaching. He should be getting along with his neighbors as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was more a personal thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you might have more context, or you might have context to what you said. I don't. Sometimes we don't get along with people, and that's just part of life, you know, for whatever reason. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. I want to make a contribution.
Please go ahead, sir.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Clinton, I'm watching your program there with your guest, and then I believe it is a good thing for society, which I think I have one of my niece on the show, that's Kim. And then the question is that a lot of parents have left their children astray. In fact, they doesn't have time to take care of them. And if that type of, if we have that type of behavior in society, I don't believe that the Boys Training Center would be, the only institution that will correct the behavior of parents in society. Because normally when you have this type of, activity, government definitely will have to play a part. So one of your guests, I think the other one, not Kim, he was making a very good program about when parents, sometimes the behavior of parents at the homes can lead to a lot of those children to the Boys Training Center.
Oh, unfortunately. Oh, he's still
going through, so then I'm listening to you guys.
Okay, thank you very much. We missed that the last part of what you said, but pretty much you was agreeing with what you were saying. And I think it's good when we have people like you who have had experience, and some of it I cannot relate to because I've not been in these situations, to share with us because of, you know, what we see in society. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. This is a very good program tonight. I just want to say that, and I want everybody to take note also. And as a new parent, I want to highlight that as parents too, sometimes our actions leave indelible impressions in our kids, and that's what makes them grow up to be what they are. So we need to look into ourselves too, and be responsible parents, and try to live our life the right way so that we could leave good impressions on our kids and they may do the right things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that contribution.
I just want to add, some people, they talk right, Clinton, and they walk left. I have a serious problem with men. No matter what problem you have with your wife or your girlfriend, you brought a child into this world, and don't wait for the government or the institution. You got to play your part. Put your anger aside, and you have to understand forgiveness is the pathway to love. You have to love your children. You know, you have to do that. You have to.
Let's go back to the phone lines. We have a call. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, caller.
Good evening. I only got some of your program, but one of the things I'd like to say is that we are all saying about parents setting a good example, but we also have to look at the parents themselves who did not get that foundation.
Okay.
And I think we need to get
That's a
some
good
of our
point.
programs towards assisting those parents. Because there are actually a lot of parents hurting because of abuse in their life when they're growing up, and they just can't even do something better for their own children. So we need more programs get towards those parents who need their help so they can be better parents themselves. That's